They laughed at her name, a whisper in the sky. Angel-01, they mocked, a cruel, fleeting sigh. But high above the world, where courage takes flight, she claimed the clouds and proved them all right. Asterisk, before we dive into this incredible story of courage and redemption, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit that bell icon so you never miss an inspiring tale. Now, let's soar into the skies with Claire, Angel-01 Patterson, and see how she turned mockery into triumph. The morning sun spilled across the tarmac of Ridgeway Airfield, casting long shadows of sleek, silver jets that gleamed like polished blades. The smell of jet fuel and warm asphalt mingled with the crisp autumn air, creating the familiar scent that Major Claire, Angel-01 Patterson, had grown up knowing. Ridgeway was a small, unassuming military base nestled on the outskirts of Cedar Creek, a town that prided itself on its tight-knit community and quiet streets. Yet inside its hangars and control towers, the world was anything but quiet. It was a place of precision, discipline, and most importantly, judgment. Claire adjusted her flight helmet and glanced at her reflection in the cockpit canopy. Her hazel eyes, sharp and unwavering, met her own gaze. She had been called many things in her life: dreamer, stubborn, even reckless. But today she knew would be different. Today she would show them all exactly who Angel-01 was. Her call sign, a seemingly whimsical nickname assigned during her training, had always drawn ridicule. Angel-01. Some pilots would snicker as she walked past. What? Did you fall from heaven or something? Others whispered behind their helmets, mocking the almost poetic tone of it. Even in her squadron, she felt the weight of unspoken doubts. But Claire never let the laughter reach her spirit. Inside her chest beat a heart tempered by loss, perseverance, and a quiet fire that refused to be doused. As she ran her pre-flight checklist, the murmurs in the briefing room earlier that morning echoed in her mind. Captain Harris, a seasoned fighter pilot with more than 20 years in the Air Force, had tried to conceal a smirk. Angel-01, you're on the morning patrol. Just try to keep up this time. The implication was clear. She wasn't fully trusted yet. She had earned her wings, but respect in Ridgeway came slower than the engines she now prepared to ignite. Claire exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain from her shoulders. Flying was her sanctuary. Up in the sky, there were no whispers, no doubt, no judgment, only speed, skill, and instinct. She climbed into the cockpit, the controls fitting like extensions of her body. The seat harness clicked, locking her firmly in place. She ran her fingers over the panels, each button and switch a familiar friend. The engine roared to life with a deep, vibrating hum that seemed to resonate through her very bones. Other pilots were lined up, their jets forming a silent procession. Along the runway, their eyes flicked toward her with a mix of skepticism and amusement. Claire felt the weight of their stares, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she centered herself, imagining the sky as her battlefield and sanctuary combined. Tower, this is Angel-01, requesting takeoff clearance, she called into her headset, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. Pause, then a crackling response. Angel-01, you're cleared for takeoff. Wind is calm. Runway 30 cleared. For a heartbeat, the laughter in the hangar seemed to vanish. Even the most jaded pilots stared, unsure whether to believe their ears. Claire's lips pressed into a thin line, her grip tightening around the controls. She taxied forward, feeling the familiar vibration of the engines through the soles of her boots. As she accelerated down the runway, the weight of skepticism pressed against her chest like a storm, but she refused to yield. The wheels lifted off the asphalt, and suddenly, she was airborne. The town below shrank into a quilt of green and brown, and the airfield became a distant memory. Up here, above the clouds, There was only her jet, and the endless expanse of the sky. Minutes into her patrol, a call came over the radio from one of the senior pilots. Angel-01, Formation Delta, keep your distance. Don't get reckless. Claire's jaw tightened, but she allowed herself a small, controlled smile. Understood, Delta Leader, she replied, her voice calm but carrying an edge of determination. They didn't know it yet, but she was no ordinary pilot. Each maneuver she executed with precision, each turn executed with grace, subtly demonstrated. What words could not dot? As she completed the first pass over the base, a sudden alert on her panel caught her attention. An unidentified aircraft had entered restricted airspace, heading directly toward Ridgeway. Claire's heart skipped a beat, but not out of fear, out of clarity. This was the moment she had trained for, the moment to prove her worth not to herself, but to those who had doubted her from the very beginning. Tower, this is Angel-01. I have an inbound, unidentified aircraft. Requesting engagement protocol, she reported, her voice a steel thread slicing through the radio static dot from below. The tower crackled. Angel-01, copy. Proceed with caution. Identify the target. Claire's hands moved instinctively, flipping switches, adjusting radar, and calculating trajectories in her mind. The jet responded perfectly to her commands, an extension of her will. As she drew closer to the unknown plane, she noticed the telltale signs of distress mechanical, smoke trailing from its left engine and erratic flight patterns. This wasn't a threat to Ridgeway. It was a pilot in trouble. Yet, in that moment, Claire realized that true courage wasn't in showing off or proving people wrong. It was in protecting those who could not protect themselves. She guided the struggling aircraft away from the base, her calm instructions over the radio providing reassurance to the panicked pilot. You're going to be okay. Follow my lead and prepare for emergency landing, she coached, her voice unwavering. Minutes stretched like hours, but finally the plane touched down safely on the runway. The pilot, a young man from another base, stumbled out, wide-eyed and grateful. I don't know how you did it. He stammered. Claire removed her helmet, letting her hair fall free across her shoulders, and smiled faintly. Just keep flying, she said simply. Back at Ridgeway, the hangar crew had been watching the entire operation unfold on their monitors. The mocking smiles had vanished, replaced by a mixture of awe and reluctant respect. Captain Harris, standing, with folded arms, finally approached her. You kept your cool under pressure. Angel-01, he said, his voice carrying the weight of earned acknowledgement. I underestimated you. I apologize. Claire nodded, but didn't respond immediately. She had known from the start that respect wasn't given. It was earned, often in silence, often in moments when others weren't watching. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and the hangar emptied, Claire stood alone, watching the jets lined up like sentinels. The echoes of laughter that had once haunted her seemed distant now, almost unreal. Angel-01 was more than a name. It was proof of skill, courage, and the quiet strength of someone who refused to be defined by others. And somewhere deep inside, Claire knew this was only the beginning. The sun had barely risen over Cedar Creek the next morning, but Major Claire, Angel-01, Patterson was already awake, lacing her boots with methodical precision. Her body still hummed with adrenaline from the previous day's flight. Even as she stretched and checked her gear, her mind replayed the rescue in vivid detail, the erratic plane, the trembling young pilot, the moment when she had realized that her calm could mean life or death. The town itself was waking slowly. A few early commuters drove past the base, waving to the guards at the gate, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding in the sky above. Ridgeway Airfield, however, never truly slept. Even in the quiet hours, mechanics pored over engines, radar. Technicians monitored flights, and pilots, some groggy, some jittery with caffeine, prepared for the next sortie. Claire walked past them with measured steps, nodding politely to a few she recognized. Yet she felt the lingering scrutiny, the invisible eyes of those who still doubted her. Respect, she knew, was a fragile thing. It could be earned in an instant, but lost with a single mistake. Captain Harris approached her as she tightened the straps on her flight suit. Angel-01, he said carefully, I need you in the simulator. There's a new emergency protocol being tested, and I want you to run it. His tone was professional, but she detected a subtle hesitation, as if he was trying to balance between criticism and acknowledgement. Claire nodded without comment. She had learned long ago that words were often empty. Actions were where the truth resided. The simulator room smelled faintly of electronics and recycled air, a place where pilots honed instincts without risking lives. Claire settled into the cockpit, her hands brushing over familiar controls. The lights dimmed, screens flickered to life, and a virtual landscape of Ridgeway spread out before her. The scenario was complex. Multiple aircraft were entering restricted airspace simultaneously, some hostile, some failing, some unpredictable. The test was designed to push even experienced pilots to their limits. Claire's heart rate rose not with fear, but anticipation. This was a challenge, and she thrived on challenges. She navigated the first few threats with precision, intercepting one failing drone and guiding it safely away from the airfield. But then came a sequence she hadn't expected. 2 malfunctioning aircraft on collision courses, each capable of causing catastrophic damage. Identify priority targets. The instructor's voice echoed in her earpiece. Claire's mind raced. Decisions had to be immediate. She chose the smaller plane first, guiding it with skillful maneuvers while simultaneously calculating trajectories for the larger one. The simulator beeped, alarms sounded, but she maintained composure. Every choice, every adjustment was deliberate. Finally, both aircraft were safely redirected, and the simulator screen flashed green. Claire exhaled, a rare smile breaking her normally composed expression. Impressive, the instructor sighed, his voice tinged with genuine admiration. You handled multiple variables better than anyone we've tested in months. You've set a new standard, Angel-01. Claire didn't respond immediately. Praise had never been her goal. She cared about competence, responsibility, and survival, the lives of pilots, the safety of Ridgeway, the trust that had to be built through action. Yet for the first time, she allowed herself a small acknowledgement, pride. The day wore on, filled with briefings, technical checks, and the usual maintenance drills. Yet a shadow lingered, a whisper among the squadron that she had disrupted the established hierarchy, that her angelic call sign masked her ambition, that her skill threatened long-standing reputations. The tension wasn't overt, but Claire felt it, like static in the air before a storm. By late afternoon, the squadron was called to a debrief in the mess hall. Pilots shuffled in, murmuring quietly, casting glances that combined curiosity and unease. Claire sat at the edge of the table, sipping lukewarm coffee, listening to the chatter. Did you see Angel-01 in the simulator today? One pilot whispered to another. Handled everything like it was nothing. Makes me wonder how long she's been hiding this skill. Yeah, but did you hear what Harris said? He's already giving her priority missions. That's unusual. The other replied, a hint of resentment in his tone. Claire felt a surge of irritation, not at their words, but at the assumptions that still defined her worth. She knew the truth. No one would ever truly understand the hours she had spent alone in flight training, the nights she had battled self-doubt, the injuries she had pushed through to perfect her skills. Their judgments were superficial, drawn from the surface of a call sign, and a few daring maneuvers. Later that evening, Claire returned to her quarters, a small, sparsely furnished room that smelled faintly of leather and motor oil. She sat on the edge of the bed, helmet in hand, and let her thoughts drift. Her life had been built on perseverance. Every challenge, every insult, every shadow of doubt had been an opportunity to forge resilience. A soft knock at the door pulled her from reflection. It was Lieutenant Sarah Thompson, a fellow pilot and one of the few in the squadron who had always treated Claire as an equal. "Hey," Sarah said quietly. "Heard about the simulator. You were incredible, seriously." Claire's lips curved into a small, grateful smile. "Thanks, Sarah. It's nice to have someone believe in me." Sarah shrugged. "You don't need my belief. You have everyone else watching now. Don't let them intimidate you." Claire nodded, understanding the weight of the warning. The squadron was a microcosm of the world outside: politics, pride, competition, and prejudice. To succeed here, she would have to navigate not only the skies, but the human terrain below. The next day, Claire faced a new test and unplanned mission: to intercept an aircraft transmitting unidentified signals near Ridgeway. The moment she received the orders, she felt the familiar rush of adrenaline. This was her chance, not just to prove skill, but to assert her authority and establish her place in the squadron once and for all. As she climbed into her jet, the hangar buzzing with activity around her, she remembered the first time someone had mocked her call sign. The memory burned, not with anger, but with determination. Angel-01 was not a joke. It was a statement, a legacy, and a promise to herself to rise above doubt, to act with courage, and to lead with integrity. The engines roared, and Claire took to the sky once again, a lone figure against the endless blue. Below, Ridgeway slept peacefully, unaware of the storm above, but Claire was ready. This was her domain. She would defend it. She would prove her worth. And she would ensure that every whisper of mockery would be replaced by the undeniable truth. Angel-01 was not to be underestimated. The early morning fog hung low over Ridgeway Airfield, shrouding the runways and hangars in a pale, ghostly light. Major Claire Angel-01 Patterson stood by her jet, the engines humming softly in anticipation. She had barely slept, her mind racing through every contingency, every maneuver, every decision she might have to make. The previous day's events had left a mark, not just on her, but on the squadron. Whispers had spread through Ridgeway, and she could feel eyes on her wherever she went, measuring, judging, speculating. Claire adjusted her gloves, the familiar leather creaking softly as she flexed her fingers. Her hazel eyes scanned the horizon. Today's mission was unpredictable. A distress signal had been detected over the nearby Cedar Creek Valley, in terrain that was notoriously difficult for navigation. Fog, jagged cliffs, and rapidly shifting weather made the mission dangerous. Even for seasoned pilots. Captain Harris approached, his expression unreadable. "Angel-01, he said, keeping his tone formal. "You'll lead the response team. It's not an easy task. Terrain, visibility, and limited communication make this one of the trickiest exercises we've run." Claire nodded, her jaw set. "Understood. I'll brief the team and proceed immediately." The team of 3 pilots assembled in the briefing room. There was a mix of skepticism and curiosity in their expressions. Among them, Lieutenant Marcus. Kane, a veteran pilot with years of Ridgeway experience, gave her a slight smirk. "Leading, huh? Let's hope Angel-01 isn't all style and no substance." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line. The jab was unnecessary, but she'd learned to turn words into motivation rather than distraction. "We have one objective: locate the source of the signal, assess the situation, and respond without risking lives unnecessarily," she said firmly. "We fly as a unit, we follow procedure, and we trust each other. That's how we succeed. The room fell silent. Her words carried authority, and for a moment, doubt wavered in the eyes of the team. She had earned some measure of respect, but the real test would come in the skies. The flight up was tense. Thick fog enveloped the valley, reducing visibility to mere meters. Instruments beeped constantly, demanding their attention, and radio. Communications crackled with static. Claire's hands moved with practiced precision over the controls, coordinating maneuvers while monitoring radar and environmental sensors. Suddenly, a loud alarm pierced the cabin. One of the team's jets had veered dangerously close to the edge of a cliff hidden by fog. "Marcus, adjust heading 20 degrees east. Keep altitude steady." Claire's voice was calm but firm, cutting through the panic that might have overtaken a less experienced pilot. Marcus gritted his teeth but followed her instructions, and the jet stabilized. Claire exhaled slowly, keeping her focus sharp. Every second counted. Every decision mattered. One wrong move here, and they could all end up in the valley below. Minutes later, the source of the distress signal appeared on the radar, a small civilian aircraft, damaged and spinning erratically in the fog. Claire guided her team in carefully, calling out positions and instructing them to maintain safe distances while providing visual guidance. "Don't get close enough to endanger yourselves," she reminded them. "We keep this coordinated. One mistake, and it's over." The pilot inside the small plane was a young man, panicked and struggling to stabilize his craft. Claire could hear the fear in his voice over the radio, a raw, human fear that mirrored the urgency in her own chest. "Follow my instructions. I'll get you through this," she said softly, her tone calm, almost soothing, but with an unmistakable authority. The landing was tense, every moment stretching into eternity. Claire took the lead, positioning herself slightly ahead of the distressed aircraft, guiding him toward a clearing she had identified from her reconnaissance. With precise commands, she directed him around obstacles, over uneven terrain, and toward the small airstrip at Ridgway's satellite training field. Finally, the plane touched down with a harsh scrape on the gravel runway, smoke rising from its damaged undercarriage. The young pilot stumbled out, visibly shaken but alive. Claire followed in her jet, bringing it to a gentle stop nearby. "You did it," he said, his voice trembling. I don't know how to thank you." Claire removed her helmet, her hair damp with sweat and condensation. "Stay calm," she said gently. "You survived because you listened. That's the best thanks anyone could give." Back at Ridgway, the squadron gathered around, having monitored the mission on live feeds. For once, skepticism and ridicule were replaced by awe. Captain Harris approached, his expression softened. "Angel-01, you led your team flawlessly. You kept everyone alive, including the civilian pilot. I can't remember the last time someone handled a situation this perfectly." Marcus Kane, normally curt and competitive, finally met her gaze. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "You're not just a call sign. You're capable. And more than that, you're a leader." Claire allowed herself a quiet smile. Validation, she realized, didn't come from words alone. It came from seeing results, from demonstrating skill and courage when it mattered most. But beneath the triumph, a gnawing sense of awareness remained. Not everyone would accept her. Not everyone would admit their misjudgments. Some would continue to whisper behind her back, plotting, waiting for her to falter. She knew the road ahead was fraught with more challenges than she had faced so far, both in the air and among the very people she was supposed to trust. That evening, she stood alone at the edge of the airfield, looking out over the valley where the rescue had occurred. The fog had lifted, revealing rugged terrain and twisted trees that seemed impossibly small from her vantage point. Her reflection in the canopy of her jet showed a woman who had faced doubt, danger, and ridicule and emerged stronger. Somewhere, deep inside, Claire understood that respect wasn't permanent, that it had to be earned again and again. But she also knew that she had the skills, the courage, and the determination to continue earning it one mission, one decision, one act of integrity at a time. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with fiery reds and golds, Claire felt a sense of quiet purpose settle over her. Angel-01 was more than a name. It was a promise to herself and to everyone who would come to rely on her. She would never falter, never abandon duty, and never let doubt define her dot above all. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The following week at Ridgeway Airfield was charged with an unusual tension. Claire could feel it the moment she stepped onto the tarmac. Whispers from pilots who had previously mocked her call sign, sidelong glances from technicians who had once doubted her competence, and a strange undercurrent of competitiveness that seemed almost personal. She had earned a measure of respect with her recent missions, but Ridgeway was a place where old grudges lingered and reputations were slow to shift. Captain Harris summoned her to the control tower for a briefing. The air inside was thick with the smell of coffee and electronic equipment, a familiar, almost comforting environment. Harris stood over a digital map of the surrounding airspace, his brow furrowed. Angel-01, we've got a new situation, he said. Radar has detected an unidentified aircraft entering restricted airspace over Cedar Creek. It's fast, erratic, and completely unresponsive to hailing. Claire studied the digital display carefully. Coordinates? She asked, already. Calculating trajectories and response options. 3 minutes out from Ridgeway, Harris replied. We need immediate interception. I'm assigning you to lead. Claire nodded. The responsibility was immense, but the thrill of a challenge coursed through her veins. She had been underestimated before, but this time she would face the test. Head on, proving both her skill and her leadership dot as she approached her jet. Lieutenant Marcus Kane stepped forward. You're leading this? He asked, his tone edged with skepticism. You sure you can handle it alone? Claire met his gaze steadily. I've handled worse, she replied evenly. We'll intercept together. Stay sharp and follow my lead. The flight out of Ridgeway was tense. Clouds rolled in over the valley below, visibility limited to a few hundred feet at times. Claire coordinated her squadron with a calm precision that belied the pressure of the situation. Every movement, every adjustment was carefully calculated. Then, without warning, one of the jets in her formation veered off course, caught in turbulent wind currents. Claire's voice crackled over the radio. Delta 2, correct your heading immediately. Maintain altitude and follow my vector. Marcus Kane gritted his teeth, adjusting his jet according to her commands. Never thought I'd see the day. Angel-01 had to tell me how to fly, he muttered over the comms, but his tone carried a reluctant respect. Finally, the unidentified aircraft appeared through the mist, a sleek, black jet, clearly not registered with any known agency. It moved unpredictably, weaving through clouds, heading straight toward the town below. Panic flashed across the faces of her squadron, but Claire's focus never wavered. This is Angel-01, she called into the radio. Do not engage unless I give the order. We need to assess whether this is hostile or a civilian in distress. The black jet suddenly changed trajectory, diving sharply toward the valley floor. Claire's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. Stay with me, Delta Squadron. Follow my lead, and we'll contain it safely. The chase through the fog was harrowing. Every second demanded split-second decisions, climbs, dives, evasive maneuvers, and yet Claire's mind remained clear, calculating the safest approach for both the squadron and the unidentified jet. As they drew closer, Claire noticed a small decal on the aircraft's fuselage, a red stripe across the wing. Recognition clicked instantly. "That's not a hostile," she said, relief mingled with caution. "It's a test aircraft from a neighboring base, but it's malfunctioning. We need to guide it safely." The squadron adjusted formation, with Claire taking the lead. She guided the rogue jet toward a safe landing corridor, her voice steady, calm, and authoritative. "Align with my vector, adjust speed by 10 knots, and maintain a steady descent. You're going to make it." Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, every maneuver a delicate dance. Finally, the test jet touched down on the auxiliary runway at Ridgeway, smoke curling from its engines, but no injuries reported. Relief washed over Claire, but it was tempered by awareness. The challenge had exposed vulnerabilities, both in Ridgeway's systems and in her own squadron's cohesion. Back at the hangar, the atmosphere was electric. Technicians and pilots. A light gathered around, witnessing the aftermath of Claire's deft leadership. Captain Harris approached, his eyes reflecting a mixture of pride and concern. "Angel-01, you handled that perfectly," he said. "I've seen many pilots face emergencies, but you kept calm under extreme pressure and ensured everyone's safety. Well done." Marcus Kane stepped forward, a rare look of humility on his face. "I misjudged you again," he admitted. "You weren't just competent, you were exceptional. I owe you an apology." Claire nodded, accepting it. Silently. Recognition mattered, but what mattered more was the knowledge that she had acted with integrity and courage when it counted most. That evening, Claire walked along the perimeter of Ridgeway, the sky painted in hues of orange and purple as the sun set. The weight of responsibility pressed on her, but she welcomed it. She had faced ridicule, doubt, and skepticism, and yet she had emerged stronger. Every mission, every challenge had shaped her, teaching her not only the art of flying, but the art of leadership, resilience, and self-respect. Yet she knew that the path ahead would not be easy. Whispers of dissent among the squadron had not disappeared entirely, and unseen forces within the base could still challenge her at any turn. She realized that earning respect required constant vigilance, not just skill in the air, but strength of character on the ground. As night fell over Cedar Creek, Claire stood alone, gazing at the stars, her reflection in the dark canopy of her jet reminded her of everything she had overcome and everything yet to come. Angel-01 was more than a name. It was proof of courage, skill, and the determination to rise above doubt. And in the quiet of that evening, she made a silent vow. She would face every challenge, confront every injustice, and earn every ounce of respect she deserved, no matter the cost. The journey was far from over, but Claire Patterson, Angel-01, was ready. Morning broke over Ridgeway Airfield with a crisp chill, the sun glinting off the polished surfaces of the jets. Claire, Angel-01. Patterson arrived early, her boots echoing on the concrete as she made her way to the hangar. There was an unusual tension in the air. She could sense it immediately. Whispers, sideways glances, a subtle rigidity in the way some of the pilots moved. It was different from the skepticism she had faced before. This was something heavier, something deliberate. Captain Harris met her at the briefing room door, his expression grave. "Claire, we've got a situation," he said. "Intelligence reports indicate a potential security breach. There's suspicion that someone on the base has been sharing sensitive flight information with an unauthorized entity." Claire's stomach tightened. A breach inside Ridgeway was far more dangerous than any rogue jet or test mission. It wasn't just about skill in the air anymore. It was about trust, loyalty, and survival. "Do we know who?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. Harris shook his head. "No solid evidence yet, but we need someone to lead a covert observation team. You'll need to identify the source without alerting anyone." It has to be quiet, precise. Claire nodded. Her mind immediately shifted into strategy mode, weighing every possibility, every angle. She knew the task would test more than her skills as a pilot. It would test her instincts, her ability to read people, and her capacity to act under pressure without letting emotions compromise judgment. The first few days of observation were tense. Claire moved through Ridgeway with quiet precision, watching, listening, noting patterns and anomalies. She realized that some of the squadron members who had outwardly expressed respect were hiding resentment. There were subtle acts of sabotage, misaligned flight instruments, altered maintenance logs, and attempts to undermine her authority during training exercises. Her intuition sharpened when she noticed Lieutenant Marcus Kane behaving unusually. He was no longer just competitive, he was secretive, often diverting attention, and he had been seen near the restricted data servers at odd hours. Claire's pulse quickened, but she reminded herself to remain objective. She could not confront him without solid evidence. The opportunity came sooner than expected. During a night exercise, one of the jets in her formation experienced a sudden system failure, nearly crashing into the mountains. Claire maneuvered flawlessly to guide the jet to safety, but the event triggered alarms that allowed her to trace the tampering back to Marcus Kane. The confrontation was inevitable. Claire found him alone in the hangar, the faint hum of maintenance lights filling the space. "Marcus," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I know what you've been doing." He turned sharply, eyes widening. "You don't understand," he stammered. "I wasn't. I mean, it's not what you think." Claire's gaze didn't waver. The logs, the tampering, the timing of the system failures. Everything points to deliberate sabotage. Why, Marcus? You were part of this squadron. You were supposed to trust me. He hesitated, a flicker of shame crossing his face. I thought I could get ahead, prove myself, without you. I didn't realize how far it would go. I never meant to put anyone in real danger. Claire's expression softened slightly, but her tone remained resolute. Intentions don't erase consequences. You jeopardized lives and the trust of everyone here. There are protocols, Marcus. You'll have to face them. The following day, Kane was removed from the squadron pending investigation. Claire's actions were scrutinized, questioned by some of her peers, but Captain Harris stood firmly by her. Sighed. "You acted decisively and correctly, Claire," he said. "That's the mark of true leadership." The airfield felt different after the betrayal. Claire moved with renewed focus, aware that respect could be fragile and trust easily broken. But the work was far from over. A new mission loomed on the horizon. A severe storm system had trapped a civilian rescue helicopter on the northern ridges, and Ridgeway's pilots were the only ones equipped to extract the crew safely. Claire led the mission personally, determined to prove that skill, courage, and integrity could overcome any obstacle. The storm raged, winds lashing against her jet, visibility near zero. Lightning split the sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and treacherous terrain below. Every maneuver required split-second decisions, and one miscalculation could spell disaster. Angel-01, I'm losing visibility. One of her team radioed. Maintain. Formation. Trust your instruments, not your eyes. Claire responded, her voice steady. Cutting through the panic. They navigated through the storm with precision. Claire's leadership keeping the team coordinated under impossible conditions. She guided the trapped helicopter to a safe landing zone on a narrow plateau, directing her squadron to provide cover and ensure stability during the rescue. When the mission was complete and the crew had been safely extracted, Claire finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. The storm had tested everything she knew, her skill, her nerves, and her ability to inspire trust in others under extreme pressure. And she had succeeded. Back at Ridgeway, the squadron gathered, exhausted, but alive. There were no mocking whispers, no doubts. Even those who had harbored resentment now looked at her with a mix of awe and respect. Captain Harris approached once again. Angel-01, today you didn't just fly. You led, protected, and saved lives. You've earned your place here, not just in skill, but in integrity. Claire nodded silently, feeling the weight of responsibility and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. She had faced betrayal, endured danger, and emerged not just unbroken, but stronger. Angel-01 was more than a call sign. It was a testament to courage, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of what was right. As night fell, Claire stood by her jet, looking out over Ridgeway Airfield. The stars reflected in the canopy above, a reminder that even in darkness, guidance and purpose could prevail. And in that quiet moment, she understood something profound. Respect might have to be earned again and again, but integrity, courage, and self-belief would always define her legacy. The challenges ahead would test her even further, but Claire Patterson, Angel-01, was ready for whatever came next. The morning air at Ridgeway Airfield was unusually still, the calm before a storm that seemed almost symbolic of the moment Claire, Angel-01, Patterson faced. Word of her recent successes and the exposure of the saboteur had begun to spread beyond the base. Pilots, technicians, and officers alike were aware that she had not only survived scrutiny, but had excelled in the face of internal betrayal, extreme danger, and relentless doubt. Yet Claire knew that recognition, while gratifying, was not the ultimate goal. Her journey had always been about more than proving herself. It was about protecting lives, leading with integrity, and setting a standard that could not be ignored or diminished. The alert came unexpectedly. Ridgeway's radar had picked up an unauthorized drone swarm approaching the perimeter. Their trajectory was unpredictable, fast, and potentially catastrophic. It wasn't a test, nor a malfunction. It was deliberate, coordinated, and dangerous. The responsibility fell on Claire to lead the interception dot as she climbed into her jet. She felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, tempered now with the calm confidence of experience. She had faced doubt, mockery, sabotage, and impossible weather, and she had prevailed. Nothing in Ridgeway's skies could shake her resolve. Captain Harris's voice came over the comms. Angel-01, this is a high-priority interception. The drones are targeting civilian areas near Cedar Creek. You have full command of squadron response. Claire's jaw set. Understood, sir. We'll contain the threat and neutralize it without civilian casualties. Her squadron formed up behind her, their trust in her complete and unwavering. Marcus Kane, now reinstated under supervision, but still grappling with his earlier mistakes, flew cautiously at the rear, a silent acknowledgement of Claire's authority. Drones appeared as small, coordinated specks against the morning sky, but their movement was lethal and deliberate. Claire directed her team with absolute clarity, assigning intercept vectors, altitude adjustments, and engagement protocols. Every maneuver was calculated, every decision deliberate. Stay tight, Delta Squadron, she instructed. Don't break formation. Focus on containment first, neutralization second. The sky erupted into controlled chaos. Jets darted, ascended, and dove with precision. Claire's hands moved instinctively over the controls, guiding her jet like an extension of herself. A few drones approached too quickly. Claire intercepted them personally, neutralizing the immediate threat while keeping her squadron safe. Amid the chaos, she noticed a pattern in the drones' movements. Someone had designed their flight paths with predictable repetition. Claire's sharp mind recognized the signature. It matched an experimental algorithm she had once studied in intelligence briefings. A software prototype shared only among a select group of engineers and officers. Delta 2, she called. Pattern recognition indicates a human origin. Focus intercepts on the central node. Take it out, and the swarm collapses. Marcus Kane hesitated. Central node? Are you sure? Trust me, Claire replied firmly. We don't have time to question this. Follow my lead. With precise coordination, Claire and her squadron neutralized the central drone. The swarm disintegrated instantly, tumbling harmlessly into the valley below. Ridgway's radar confirmed that the threat had been eliminated. The base erupted into cheers over the comms, but Claire's focus remained on the broader implications. Someone on the inside had tried to weaponize technology against civilians, and the solution had required her knowledge, composure, and courage. On the ground, the atmosphere in Ridgway was electric. Pilots, technicians, and commanding officers gathered to witness the return of the squadron. Captain Harris approached, eyes glinting with pride. Angel-01, today you didn't just lead. You protected lives, outmaneuvered a sophisticated threat, and demonstrated why you belong at the forefront of this base. You've earned respect, not because of a call sign, but because of your courage and integrity. Marcus Kane stepped forward, his head lowered. Claire, I was wrong. I underestimated you, and I let my ambition cloud my judgment. Today, I see exactly who you are. Thank you for showing all of us what leadership really looks like. Claire's eyes softened, but her expression remained composed. We all have lessons to learn, Marcus. It's not just about skill, it's about responsibility and integrity. Remember that moving forward. As the crowd dispersed, Claire walked alone to the edge of the airfield. The sun hung low over Cedar Creek, painting the sky with gold and crimson. Her reflection shimmered in the canopy of her jet, but this time it carried more than fatigue or determination. It carried victory, earned not through mockery, not through others' opinions, but through unwavering strength of character. The first time, the whispers and skepticism that had once haunted her seemed distant and insignificant. Angel-01 was no longer just a name. They respected it, feared it, and most importantly, recognized the truth it represented. Claire exhaled slowly, feeling a profound sense of closure. She had been doubted, mocked, and tested in every imaginable way. She had faced sabotage, betrayal, and life-threatening missions. And yet, she had emerged stronger, wiser, and triumphant. Her journey was a testament. Courage, integrity, and determination could overcome doubt, injustice, and fear. And in the skies above Ridgway, Angel-01 would forever stand as a symbol not of a whimsical call sign, but of the unwavering strength of a woman who refused to be defined by anyone other than herself. As she climbed into her jet one final time. That evening, the control tower crackled over the radio. Angel-01, you're cleared for final approach. Welcome home. Claire smiled beneath her helmet, the weight of triumph settling into her bones. She had earned every ounce of respect, every moment of acknowledgement, and every whisper of admiration. The skies were hers, not because they were easy, but because she had proven she was ready to meet any challenge, and she would always rise above. And in that moment, Angel-01 truly belonged, not to the call sign, not to Ridgway, but to herself. The control tower's lights blinked softly in the evening glow, and Claire's jet descended gracefully, a single figure embodying courage, resilience, and the power of a spirit that refused to be underestimated. Her journey was complete, yet the legend of Angel-01 had only just begun.